DJ Breezy. Alright. Ejebe wo pa mi nye. Do me wo mani de. She. Atari me to mani fe. So I mean who say wo she. Credit tama and running ne. Na so media wo free. Si you better from me di cancel check. The kanye na meet any minute. Ne. Jebe na ma ya wo baba bebu mi komo.
Writing code, do you use source control? Because if you don't get source control, use Git. Source, no? Okay, I'm going to show you some of that stuff as well then. Okay, the world's changing. It's a very different place from where it used to be. When Visual Studio 2012 launched, we had a big campaign called The New Normal. And the new normal is about apps and app stores. Because apps and app stores have changed the way consumers consume applications. Okay? It used to be that releasing a version of your product once every 2 years, or in Windows case, once every 6 years, it was okay. Everybody kind of accepted it. And then Apple came along with an app store, and most of the apps were getting updated on a monthly basis with new features, new things, because all these people were innovating. So they needed to get in front of their customers quickly. Yeah, and that changed everybody here got a smartphone? You download apps? Your perception of what an application is different from my generation's perception of an application. I'm used to apps shipping once every 2 years. Now I can't stand it when an application doesn't ship every month. That's the change that was made. You guys are growing up with that built in, that change. So it's not a change for you guys, it's the way it is. Why wouldn't you do it any other way? I want new features and I want them now, but that's not the way it was. So businesses have to be faster. The competition, I mean, it's all about startups now. You've got 10 startups with similar ideas. They're all competing for the same market share. Whoever's getting there quickest, not always the best. I have all sorts of jokes around Betamax and VHS that you guys just won't get. There was 2 video recorder technologies, Betamax and VHS, and Betamax was better quality, longer lasting, higher fidelity, but VHS won. Why? Because it was cheap and quick. Cheap and quick beats high quality in almost every case, except when you can get cheap and high quality. That's even better. So they're just iterating. And time to market it's the most important thing. You've got to get in front of your customers real quick. So what are the problems? Frustration with your applications, with your process. You've got to write some code, and you've got to get it into the iOS store. How does that is that magic? Do you have to do a bunch of work to get that to happen? Okay, so anybody here built a mobile app? Yet? No? Okay, once you start building mobile apps, you'll not be on your own building mobile apps. 2 people building mobile apps, you've also got to merge your code. You've got to make that code work together and then ship it. And I want you to do it every week. It's going to be hard. So we need some tools to help us there. So we get a lot of delays because you 4 at the back are working together building an app, and you all go and off and work separately, and you come back together and realize that your stuff doesn't work together. Yeah, so now you've got crap. We were going to release next week, but now we've got another 6 weeks of work making our stuff work together, and we're late. Build and how you build it. Why would you spend time building a feature that you think is cool, but your customers don't care about? They never click that button because it's not of interest to them. Spend your time and effort and money where your customers want you to go. So quite often, companies looking at the insights in their application, the telemetry, end up building a very different app than the one they thought they were going to build, because what their customers want is slightly different from where they thought they were going. And you need to understand that to be able to get there without getting broken. I'm going to go fairly quickly because we've only got, well, maybe I can do it in an hour. Developers. Developers does not mean coders. Okay, almost universally now, apart from big enterprises, developers is accepted as not equal to coders. Developers equals members of your development team, which could be coders, could be testers, could be business analysts, people involved in developing the software. If you hired somebody to create a building, They would be a property developer. Yeah? Is it just a bunch of electricians? No. Is it just a bunch of bricklayers? No. It's a whole bunch of people, everybody they need to get that done. That's what developers are. But IT ops has always been separate because they're measured differently. Developers are measured based on the number of features we can get into production. Ship more stuff, yeah? But shipping stuff is change. And change can be good, but sometimes it can be bad. You ship stuff and it breaks, and we've got to do a fix. So what's IT ops measured in? They are measured in how much uptime the application is. How often is it working? The more it's working, the more they are happy. So you've got somebody who wants to break it and somebody who wants to keep it working, and they're fighting each other. So you get this wall between developers and ops when they're separate teams. And then you've got the business over another wall. DevOps is about breaking down that wall between developers and operations and bringing operations as a first-class citizen into the development team, but you need more tools for that. It's not magic. Earlier, we were told if you can use open source tools, they're free, they're awesome, use them, and I totally agree. What I'm going to show you is not an open source tool. However, it is also free, so you can just use it as long as you've got internet access, okay? But it allows you to plug all of the open source tends to focus on implementation, doing stuff. This tool, Visual Studio Online and TFS, focuses on orchestration. How do we knit all of those things together? And it's going to allow you to plug any sort of open source stuff you want to do into that, it might be Microsoft, but whether you're building iOS, Android, Java apps, it will do it all. It doesn't care. It's a completely agnostic platform. It's for orchestrating the building of your software. So it provides a bunch of tools. And I'm going to skip into a little bit further. There we go. So DevOps is about this entire circle. You plan, you code and test, okay? So you're going to code it, compile it, and then test it, and not the same person. You don't test your own stuff because you won't see your mistakes. Then we release it, we ship it to production, and then we need to monitor it and learn from that result, feed that back into the cycle, and we keep going round that. Now, in the old way, you used to go round that once every 2 years. It's often too late to get features into your customers in that cycle. By the time you've shipped the feature, the customer's like, well, I don't give a crap about that anymore. We're doing something else now. Or we're using your competitor's product who was able to ship quicker. That's what normally happens. So you guys are a unique opportunity as startups to be able to just start with shipping quickly and never stop shipping quickly. The quicker you can ship, the better. Flickr ships 60 to 70 times a day to production. The Azure, Microsoft's cloud platform, which has millions of servers, they ship to production 2 or 3 times a day. It's not about scale, it's about having the automation in place to make that easy. And if you start with the automation, it's always going to be easy, so you need to get there. So the first thing we need to do is plan. Whatever it is we're going to build, we need to do some sort of planning. In agility, we try and minimize the amount of upfront planning we're going to do, but we still have to do some, otherwise we're going to have no idea what we're doing. We want to understand at any point in time, we want to understand where we are just now, so we know whether we're going to meet our goal. Does that make sense? Cool. So how would you do that? I'm not sure I can hold this and click at the same time, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. So I'm going to try. All over Ghana, or is it reasonably okay? Usually okay. This building is flaky. It's reasonably okay or flaky? Flaky. A little bit flaky. Okay, definitely use Git because you have a whole offline copy with Git. This is Team Foundation server. Yes, I am running a virtual machine on my tablet because it's a Windows tablet and not a Mac. You get to do that. So I've got TFS, which is a server product that you can install. You can use it for free with teams of up to 5 people. You can install it and use it. They have a cloud version, visualstudioonline.com. You can go and get a free version for 5 people. But it's on the internet, so if your internet connection goes down, you kind of can't see stuff. which kind of sucks. So the on-premise one might be better for you. And you can just run it in a virtual machine somewhere. Back your databases up when you're online and you should be fine. So this is a home screen. I've created a project called Fabricam Fiber, and I get a dashboard. Okay? So this dashboard is customizable, and it's going to show me a few things. I know, do you need some binoculars up there? You're kind of quite far at the back. You should come down the front so you can see better. Oh, there we go. We found the binoculars. So we've got some pinned items on the board, and right just by looking at this, if I've got 3 or 4 developers, I can see that they've not checked in any code in the last 2 days. That's that 0 in the purple tile on the left, so that nobody's checked in anything. That's a warning sign right there. If nobody's checked in, whoa, what are we doing? Is it all stored locally? We want it in the central system so that we don't lose it when something goes bang. If you've just got code in your machine, what happens when your hard drive fails? It's gone. You lose everything. If it's stored in source control, you keep everything. What happens if you're editing the code and you go, oh no, I really want to delete that and go back to where I was before, but you save it? Oh, now I can't go back because I've saved it over the file and maybe I've got some special tools to go and recover. No, use source control. Source control stores every version of every file as long as you commit it to source control. And Git's awesome. You can commit locally, check in locally, and then you've got a copy that you can go back to. And then you can push to the server when the server's available, and then there's a copy stored there, and you never lose it. It's awesome. And you can create forks of your code. So you can have one version of your code, create a fork of it because you're trying something out. You know how you do that? You'd use zip your code so that you can go try something, and then you unzip it back. Stop doing that and get Git. Git will let you create a branch, a copy of the code, and you can literally just right-click and flip between all the different versions of your code that you're working on at the moment. It's so much faster. I can see that there's 3 things in the product backlog. There's 32 tasks in the sprint backlog. See this just from the dashboard. I can also see that the nightly build is doing okay. Everybody know what a nightly build is? Continuous integration? No? Yes? A couple of people were like, yeah, I kind of know what that is. So, if you build code on your machine, does it work on your customer's machine? Maybe? Do you really know? It depends. What was the configuration of your machine, and does your customer's machine have all the bits that your machine has? So how do you know whether you've added something to your code base that adds a requirement to your customer's machine if you just build it on your machine and it looks like it works? There's actually a little sticker you can go online and buy that says, it works on my machine. And it's for developers that just build code on their local machine. You want to build code on at least 2 places. It's like finding life on Mars. If life is just here on Earth and it's nowhere else, chances are it's just here. If we find it in one other place, it's everywhere. Yeah, statistically, if our code compiles on 2 machines, we're pretty sure we're okay. We're not 100% sure, but we're a hell of a lot more sure. So wouldn't it be awesome if we could have a system that watched where we're putting our code, and when we put new code in there, it goes and grabs it, compiles it on a different machine, and tells you whether it works or not? And in fact, if I've got 5 developers all working on one code base, so there's one copy of the code on the server, I'm going to work locally and push my changes to the server once or twice a day, integrating with everybody else's work, and then this server is going to pick it up, build it, tell you whether it works. So as soon as somebody checks in something that's crap, you know right away. Build, fail, okay guys, somebody's checked in something that's crap. And then you can go to the source control system, look at the history, and see exactly what they changed. Okay, that's where the problem is. Much easier to find stuff, much easier to debug those sorts of errors, and that's probably 90% of your errors right there. Microsoft did a study quite recently that found that 90% of all bugs in production come from copying and pasting code. So the first thing you do on all your developer workstations is disable copy-paste. Always write it again, because you get bugs otherwise. Just saying, that's a side issue. So here, I can click on my backlog, and if you're doing Scrum, we're going to have a list of things we want to go do. We want to put that list, I think it's loading, it is, there's a spinner. Virtual machines, what can you do? There we go, there's my backlog. Doesn't really matter what those things are. I've got a list of things I want to go do. Yeah, the boss, who's in charge of the software and delivering value. So I'm the product owner and I can go in and say, well, this one here is more important. So I'm going to move it higher in the list. That's it saved, it's all done. Drag and drop. And I can just go in anytime and change stuff that's not been started yet. Oh, I've got an idea. Oh crap, that's in my inbox, like way down there. Yeah? No, you go in and you just say, new feature. There we go, there's my new feature, and I can put it in the backlog where I feel it is most important. Very straightforward. And you can see these items are committed here. Yeah, they're marked as committed. That's because there's a team working on them. I've got a list of stuff, and the stuff at the top somebody's gone working on. All the other stuff I can order and change. That stuff, they're working on that. I'll see that next month or 2 weeks, whatever their sprint length is. So this is my backlog. Not only that, but I can go over. I bet you've heard the term Kanban a few times today. Visual boards, where you put your sticky notes to show progress. What if you've got a team here in Ghana and another team in Nigeria that you're working with? Is stickies on a board going to cut it? Do you phone each other every time you move a sticky and get both of you to move the same sticky? Yeah, it's going to suck. So you need a board where you can put stuff that everybody can see. If it's in a TFS server on site, then obviously they need remote access, so if your internet connection goes down, then somebody can't see the stuff. But if you're using Visual Studio Online, that's what I tend to use these days, is Visual Studio Online. You get this all hosted in the cloud, so Microsoft run it for you. And you don't have, obviously if your internet connection's down, you can't go look at it, but at least you know it's always there. If a meteor hits your office and you're not there, your server isn't gone. It's in the cloud and Microsoft support it and maintain it. And if I go to my Kanban board and it's stickies, what might I want to do? Well, I might want to drag one across from new to approved, or I might want to change the amount of work that's involved, or I might want to assign it to a different person, like Excel. Anybody done project management with Excel? You have a list of tasks that you want to go work on. It's not very rich, it's not very featureful, and only one person can open Excel at once. Kind of sucks. You can tag stuff, you can search for stuff. It's all very powerful and really handy. You can add attachments, so when you get an email with an attachment that's the image for the website that you're going to build, you don't leave it in your email, you go attach it to the work item so that when the developer goes and opens the work item, they can just go and open the attachment. Does it have? Yeah, does it have a limit to the amount of space? No, it's infinite, which is even more awesome. Yeah, my friend of mine created an account, not because he wanted to use it, but because he wanted to upload his 3 terabytes of family pictures into it. And he did that, and Microsoft said, yeah, whatever. Honestly, if you went and looked at how much storage is available in Azure, I mean, it's billions of terabytes of data are available in Azure. It costs $5 a month to get a terabyte of storage for you personally. And the Visual Studio team are buying in bulk for all of their customers, and some customers have tiny little bits of storage and other customers have huge. It's really totally, the cost per gig of transfer data is something like 0.0001 pence, which is, I don't know how many 0.0s Ghana notes that is, but it's the things you would expect, so a description, acceptance criteria. I can actually store my test cases in here as well and see which test cases are passing and failing against which requirements. That way you know where to go look when something goes wrong. I'm not going to be able to, you go, well, that's great, but it kind of sucks for what I'm doing. You can use an open source one. Have you heard of Selenium? Go look up Selenium. If you're building websites, Selenium is the way to test them. If you're writing code, not just UIs, but the code behind, things like SpecFlow, which is a tool, a gherkin tool, all sorts of weird words. Yes, gherkin the vegetable. It's just open source guys name things really sillily. You'll learn that fairly quickly once you get into the open source world. But that tool allows you to automate testing of what your application does, not just what the developer wants it to do. What does the customer want it to do? Automate your applications. So this is just work item tracking. That's what it's called. We've got a bunch of work that we want to do. So if I close that, and if I open this out, I can see all the tasks that are associated with this item. So these are the things that would be maybe assigned to individuals or individuals would pull, depending on what sort of process you're using. And here inside this backlog item, I've got one that's done, one that's in progress, and 2 that haven't been started yet. Yeah, it's fairly easy to see. But wouldn't it be nice if my coders had a board as well? So this board here, this Kanban board, is really about flow control. Anybody read The Toyota Way? Go read that book as well. But the Toyota Way is all about flow through your system. You want to be able to get work to production as quickly as possible, and if you're monitoring the flow, you can see where the blockages are. But I want to be able to see where my team is working. So if I flip over to another team, hopefully that will take a second to load. So there's 4 teams working on this code, and this is not an Agile team. Do you know how I know it's not an Agile team? Because they've got a database team, a devices team, an ops team, and a web team. So they're breaking things horizontally. So they're going to have massive dependency issues. They should be vertical, but that's what they've got in here. But if I flip over to the web team, that's assigned to the web team, and it's the same data. Okay? So I had a full all teams view, and then I switched to the web team view of the same data. And they have their own backlog, they can see their stuff, but they also have an iteration. I'm going to go to a past iteration, go to 3. There we go. But this board is different. This board is not a Kanban board. It kind of looks a little bit like a Kanban board, but it's got a subtle difference. Instead of your things you want to do moving across, the things you want to do are pinned to the left, and you have a block of tasks that move across. So this is for the team executing against work to go, well, we're working on this feature, and I've got 1 task done, and I've got 3 to do. Very quick to go see. And you can see, it's difficult to see, but the picture is a little picture of the person who the work's assigned to, so you can very quickly look at it and go, yeah, I know who these things are assigned to. So I can go ask them, are we okay with this? We've not started this? Even though it's the most visualizing the data. Most teams put these up on screens in their office, or like get a cheap projector and project it on the wall. Whatever you do, make it visible, whether it's on your desktop or somewhere. It's very powerful. And I can create queries to search this data any way I like. That makes sense so far? Awesome. So there's way more to it than that, but I just wanted to give you the basics. So let me close that down. And I'm going to change this so that it's not... Planning, it's awesome, but if you don't make it, then it's useless. But we kind of want to link what we're planning, what we're doing, to what we're planning, so that we know what work went into building something. Make sense? So wouldn't it be cool if we had some tools around coding and testing and building our code? Remember I said we have to build our code. So we write some code. You all obviously write unit tests for every bit of code that you write. Yes? Nod, because you will do from now on. Always write unit tests. And we're going to store it in version control. That's the Git. Use Git. It's the best way. We're going to build it, and then we're going to verify the build. So somebody's got to go take the bits that are just built and go look at it and tell you whether it's good or not. Does it do what it's supposed to do? Do you guys split the testing between your team members? Like somebody who codes a feature is not the same as the person who goes and tests it, because that's a good idea? Yeah, exactly. Am I? Yes, I'm going to go to the same project. And we were just on the home tab, and we looked at work. I can go look at it, and I can actually edit it in the web, although probably not a good idea. And I'm going to open Visual Studio. Now I'm running Visual Studio Enterprise, which is the ridiculously expensive $12,000 a copy version of the software. But you can, yes, I know. But you can, ridiculous. You can get a trial for 90 days. And then you reinstall your machine and you get another trial for 90 days. I've never not reinstalled my machine every 30 days anyway, so I've never hit the expiry for it. Yeah, but they also have Community Edition, which is free. It's free anyway, but it's for building open source stuff. So if you're working on open source stuff, that's easy. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio. And Visual Studio is fully integrated with TFS, out of the box, and Git. So on the right-hand side there, I can see Source Control Explorer, work items. I can go and look at my work items in here that I'm working on. I can click on work items, all bugs. There's a bug, open it up, and I can see my bug right in Visual Studio, so I don't need to go anywhere else. Who's doing Java development versus Windows Java development? So Eclipse has a plugin as well that gives you full integration, which is pretty much the same-ish. Eclipse is crap. So there we go. I can click on it and see a list of references that are using that piece of code. That's pretty powerful. Wouldn't it be cool if it just tests me exactly which tests, unit tests, call through that piece of code, so that if one of them are failing, I can go and figure that out, because it might be relevant there? Yeah? That's pretty useful. And then we get to source control. This says Julia. Julia was the last person who edited this bit of code. I'm not Julia, and I'm not logged in as Julia. But I can see that she was the last one that edited the code. So if there's any problems, I go call Julia. There's only been one edit, so that's not particularly good. And there's been one change from one person that's been checked in. So I'm getting that information from the server. If I had 20 people working on this code, I'd see all the edits from 20 people. It's going to tell me who edited which lines of code last. So there's no reason now, it's like, oh, I don't know who edited that line of code. Who made that change? And I think I said yesterday, 90% of the time you find out it was you that messed it up. So make sure you look before you say who edited that code, because it's always the person that asked. That's just, it always is. So I get a lot of information about my code, and I can see all of the edits that are going on. There's some plugins for this that allow you to see, anybody care about cyclomatic complexity? Your code has a certain quality. The more if statements, you guys are just out of university, you'll know this. The more if statements you have, the more complicated your method. The more lines, the more complicated your method, and there's an algorithm for figuring that out, yeah? So there's a plugin that plugs in there that's built into Visual Studio that puts a little how complicated your code is bar on there. And when you edit your code and compile, it has a little green arrow if you've made it better and a little red arrow if you've made it worse. Running all the unit tests and making sure everything's good. So if it compiles and the unit test pass, you're probably okay. If it compiles and some of the unit tests fail, you might want to go and look at it. If it's a compile failure, you need to go and beat up the developer that checked it in, because he should have tested it locally before he checked it in, so you don't have that problem. Yeah? Obviously, don't actually beat him up, but... So I'm not even going to look into that just now, but you can see that something was wrong, the build failed, it actually failed really quickly, and it gives me a message about why it failed, what the exception was, so I get an idea where to go look. Make sense? Just like you build it locally, you'll probably find if I built it locally, it wouldn't build either. But I was lazy and didn't build it before I checked it in. But what it will do is you'll have all of the output is available through the web page to go download the bits that it just built. Because this failed, there'll just be the logs of the build, so you can go and download the build logs and figure out what the problem is. Yes, it will build Linux, and there's a Linux agent. So it's a node-based agent, so you can go and put it anywhere. A colleague of mine even put it on a USB stick, plugged it into a Samsung TV, and did the builds on the processor on the Samsung TV, just for fun. We kind of need to deploy it somewhere before we can test it. Because if we're building an application that runs on a web page, a new website, we've got a database, and we've got code that we need to deploy somewhere. That's actually what this app is database and code. So I have a tool. Now, I'm going to show you this tool, and it's going to be absolutely horrible to look at, okay? And it's a pain in the ass to use, and it's going away in 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, there's a new version of this tool that's 10 times better. But I'm just going to show you it quickly to show what the new tool works in the same way, except it's web-based and a lot more intuitive to use, but it's the same idea. We need to, we've built our code. We've got this server for developer testing, and we've got this server that your product owner owns that he wants to use to show to customers what you've built, but it's not live. And then we've got live over here. Yeah? So you need to deploy it here, and then deploy it here if everything's good. But do you want to do that manually? Have you ever given somebody a 100-step set of tasks to do and asked them to do it 3 times? Are they going to get it right 3 times? Are they even going to get it right once? No, it's not going to happen. So you need to automate. You need to automate. So if you have PowerShell or shell script or whatever you want to use, PowerShell is going to work on Linux soon, by the way, that I've just built, you know, your bin folder, and I run this script and tell it where the bin folder is, I should be able to do everything I need to do to deploy the application. I should be able to update the database. I should be able to, using the scripts that I've got, update the database, update the application, restart IIS, all of those lovely things. The things that you would do manually to do it. And you've just tested your deployment. So this tool lets you do 2 things. If I had internet, I would show you the new version of the tool, which you're not supposed to see yet because it doesn't come out for 3 weeks, but I was going to show you that, but I don't have internet. It actually does the deployment to dev automatically. So if I'm going to build it and it works, just ship it into dev environment. So now the coders and the testers can go look at it, make sure everything's okay. You know, smoke test, you open the app and you click through and everything looks good. That's a smoke test. Yeah? At the end of that, somebody goes in, one of the development team goes in and says, yeah, this is awesome, we're gonna let the product owner see this. So they click a button and it goes and deploys to the product owner's environment, quality assurance environment, that's where he owns it. Deploys there and he gets a message to say, oh, it's been deployed and you can go look at it. And you look, oh, you're testing, haven't you? And you go, yes, everything's good. So he then says, awesome, that's good to go. But there's somebody else, the CEO in the company is the one who actually has to approve production deployments, because if it goes wrong, you're going to lose money, so he wants to click that button. Because, you know, some people are like that. So the final one in prod has a pre-moderation step. So he gets an email saying, there's a new version of the software. You can go and check it out in the QA environment. Do you want to ship it? And he gets a web interface, and he can click ship it. And because he's pre-moderating that ship, it asks them, do you want to ship it now, or do you want to ship it at a particular time? And he goes, awesome. No, I don't want to ship it now because it's Tuesday morning and that's our busiest time. Can we schedule this for Friday night at midnight? Click OK, and it will ship Friday night at midnight. The tools will just do it for you. And the new version of the tool is all web-based. You don't need this crazy black nasty application, because this is impossible to read and it's so slow. Honestly, you don't want me clicking through this. It is slow. Right. Microsoft deploy Visual Studio Online with this, and they've got 6 environments and something like 4,500 servers, and they use this tool for that. But it works at the small scale as well. I've got 1 machine, and I'm doing deployments there with it. So we've got it deployed.
Development lifecycle. Assuming between a client and developer.
Yep.
How do you manage timeline and budget constraints? That is cost. Because it is so interactive. Along the line, the client discovers something he wants to be added. Then the developer says, no, for this you need to pay extra. So have you had such?
Yes. And in Agile, especially, so the customers, the developers, and the product owner have that conversation with the customer. The product owner owns the backlog. The product owner owns the product. The product owner owns the value. Everybody that wants new features needs to change the order. Money needs to be spent. The product owner makes the decisions. So you need a good product owner. The product owner holds the purse strings. The business gives the product owner a bunch of money to go and build the software. The developers are just building whatever the product owner tells them, regardless of whatever anybody else says.
Now, who is going to use the software? The product owner?
Who's going to
use the software?
To use the software, the customers.
The customer?
Yes.
Now, the product owner is the sponsor. Is it correct?
No. So, but could be. Yeah, I'm being very...
So, assuming the product owner is a customer.
Yep.
Along the line, you find that something needs to be added.
Yep. Put it on the backlog. Did you see me show? I showed an example of a backlog. No. So you've got a list of stuff that you're going to go do, and the order is the order that the product owner wants you to go do it in. There's a bunch of stuff that you've started that's in your current sprint. He can't change that because you've started it. okay? But you've got 300 other things that you need to go do, and the product owner goes, oh, maybe we should do this new one. So he puts it on the backlog, and he orders it in the backlog where it's appropriate to go. And then when you guys finish your sprint, you go look at the backlog. We're going to do the next 10 things. That will either be in the next 10 things or out. And the product owner owns that 10 things, so he can put it higher if it's more important for him.
All right, I'm looking at it. Since it is very interactive, I'm thinking there should be a room for some minor additions without extra cost.
So I understand. However, you've got a team. Okay, let's say I've got a team of 5 people and I'm working against a backlog. That team can only do so much stuff. So it's team time, not necessarily cost. My team costs me, let's say my cost, oh well, I'm going to use British cost. Let's say my team costs me £10,000 a sprint to deliver work. If I need another sprint, it's another £10,000. That's just what it is. You can't go any faster than you can go. You need to work at a sustainable pace, otherwise you'll burn people out. And if you burn people out, you lose features later for short-term gain now. So it's better to go at a sustainable pace. Yeah? But it's a good question. It's a good question. The tools will help you manage that, just to have stuff in the right place. But the people are the ones who actually manage it. The product owner owns that list. He can just store it in here so everybody can see it.